This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
Remember that we're humans, that we're working with other humans, even as leaders. And it takes that understanding of your own limitations and being humble and saying, there's no way I can know what these people want unless I ask them. So I have to be empathetic.
There are people that you meet in your life that you feel like you could be on a path for a karmic connection, but then life gets in the way. And I'm doing my thing and they're doing their thing. And my guest today, Corey Jones, is co-founder of PrismWork. Now 1,000 days in on the job. You also have a new title over there, which is CEO. What's up with that, man? I love that.
It's exciting times, 1,000 days in. First, I want to say thank you for inviting me on, finding some time to chat with me, and asking the real questions like, what's going on?
Yeah, what's going on, man? You know, let's talk about your journey, and I mean that, by the way, Corey. Like, you get busy, I get busy, like, and we're all just trying to figure it out, right? We're all trying to figure out this world. But when I study your material, and I know mine, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of head nods. Like, we share logic. Easier said than done on the work itself, right? But talk to me about PrismWork, first of all. Just give like the listener high level overview of what PrismWork is. And then you're based down in Texas, but the company is, I'm assuming, is remote, correct?
Absolutely. Great question. So PrismWork is 3 years old. We were founded officially in January of 2021. We just crossed the 3-year mark. And right at the 3-year mark, there was a baton handed from the preceding CEO to myself, my co-founding partner and number one investor and now advisor, Lisa Stromberg, has decided to step away. And I did not want to see the company go away. I wanted all of the great things that were happening to flourish, and she wanted the same things. And so our leadership team, we all decided that the best way forward for me to be stepped into the role of CEO. So it was very humbling, but I feel the responsibility, and I feel the journey ahead is going to be exciting. So I'm always ready to jump into the seat when there's some unknowns out there and some turns around the corner that maybe I can find a delightful surprise around. So I jumped into the seat, and we're focusing on kind of the products that we built and cultivated at the start. Over these 3 years, we've written a book. We've designed a framework of leadership called HEARTI. We've developed learning labs to talk to middle managers and people managers and executive teams, and developed executive coaching. So we've, found a way to design a palette of tools and suite of tools that we just need to get to the people to make the workplace better. So PrismWork is a consultancy that does cultural transformation through focusing on leadership development. And if I were to say it in a sentence, that would be it. Is we inspire everyone. Our vision is to inspire everyone to recognize their inner leader, and then use their leader to transform the workplace for better.
All right, let's start with you as the leader, because you're now, like you said, the new fearless leader at the top, or maybe it's, I like to say, fear more leader. I don't think fear is a bad thing. I think the higher up you get, the more fear there probably is, right? So it's what you do with it. So now that you're in the CEO seat, what's been the largest surprise so far? And I know the title, I mean, like, you're a co-founder, right? So, but the title and the newness, it's sort of like there is no net anymore when you're the CEO.
Right.
What have you learned so far?
Well, that everyone is very congratulatory and encouraging. And the assumption is that you've got it, that everything's good, you made it, to the finish line and there's no more race to run. And to me, the race is just ahead. We just started. And so for me, it's a big misconception. People think when you're in the CEO seat, oh, life is easy and greasy and you've got nothing to worry about. Well, I've got, now the responsibility of the employees to make sure that I'm finding ways to build revenues and that their families can be taken care of, that they can find, places to stay, that I can, house and feed my own family. All of those things come into play, through this venture, which, it comes with the territory. I'm not crying about it. I'm just saying that's part of it. And it's part that maybe didn't have to consciously think about every day before stepping into the role, but now it is very in the forefront for sure.
Do you find that yes, more responsibilities because I think it's a lot easier personally to just be the practitioner, right? And by the way, I think you have to figure out a way to stay practitioner. Almost every single time that I've seen a real gap between leaders and the team is when ivory tower syndrome happens, and the leaders are so far away from the work or the workers that they're making assumptions and they're not paying attention to the right things. They're not listening. And this is not to like point fingers like, you're not listening. They've got plenty to do, as you now know, as a CEO. So how do you stay sort of focused on listening to your teams while also now staying high level enough to do what you need to do as CEO?
This is a great question. And, that's why I'm very grateful for the 3 years I've had to really dig in and be more of the innovator, developer, and practitioner, to see the outcomes in real time with our customers, with our clients, to see those leaders, those managers have aha moments and say, I can be a better leader. I now have tools in place to make my team perform at a higher level. I have tools in place to be more vulnerable as a leader, and my company, encourages me to do so. I have more autonomy because I know a better way to respect people and have empathetic conversations while also holding them accountable. And so when I'm seeing that over and over again, with cohorts, and it helps me really know, and it validates that not just the content, it's not just some words, pulled out of the air. This is content that resonates, that is effective, and that people are using in their everyday working routine to become better leaders, and because they want to see a different way forward for the way that they work. All of the things, that we know that's inherent in name an industry, advertising, retail, tech. There are issues with people being thrust into a leadership role without given the skills and the tools and resources to actually lead. Right? You're a great individual contributor. I'm bringing it back to where I am, but you're a great individual contributor. And then when you're thrust into this role where people are now looking to you for answers, make decisions, or to help give them the resources they need to do their job better, it becomes a challenge because you start grasping for resources, you start questioning your own intelligence, you start doing all kinds of things when the key is being grounded and knowing who you are and knowing how to communicate what you do and why you do it, and why those decisions are made, while hearing the true needs of your team. And so that's what I've done throughout my career, Ryan, of, when being an individual contributor and stepping into a role of leadership, always saying, I've seen ways for it to be done masterfully, and I've seen ways that I would never want to repeat. And when I get into that role, I want to combine the best of those things. And so I've done that every step in my journey, and I'll continue to do that. Is borrowing from the best. None of this is completely original thought. It's a remix of the good and the bad that I've seen along the way, and how to communicate my message, how to communicate my purpose and vision so that people can grasp onto that and say, I want to join you.
I'm curious if you've created any new process now that you're CEO? Has there been any new processes you've like just sort of, oh shoot, I think I'm landing, but maybe I'm not. Like I need to be consistent, and this is a new meeting that goes on the calendar once a week. Or have you added any new process since you've been elevated to CEO?
I've honestly, if I'm being honest, I've scaled back. I've had less meetings and more time. If I say it's any process, it's adding more time back onto my calendar and being less spread thin and being able to have really focused time to ideate, to think about the vision, to understand what am I going to say when I go to those networking meetings or when I go into that business, meeting. How do I help to tell that story so that more people can learn about our journey and how we can help them, not just be better leaders, but how we can help the organization be more effective. That's tuned to how they operate, not just how someone tells them they should, but how they really operate.
Obviously, this is the Courageous podcast, right? So, do you see this as a courageous moment for you?
Absolutely. So this step in my journey came with a lot of not a lot of I won't say not a lot of thought, but it was a moment that I felt could not pass without me stepping into the role. I am typically, so my background is creative. I spent over 25 years in creating videos, commercials, music videos, feature film.
Where have I heard this story before? Where have I known another creative person that pivoted to leadership? Yeah,
And my career was spent behind the camera, Ryan. So behind the microphone producing or behind the camera giving direction or applauding or building people up. And so being on stage or out front was never on my list to do. And so I become comfortable in doing that. And a few years ago, I started doing a word of the year. And last year in 2023, my word was out front. Out front. And so it challenged me to put myself out front, to be more expressive on social media, to go to more meetings, to go to that convention, that event, and tell the story, to position myself to be out front in any capacity or opportunity. It was the biggest challenge to do that, to know that I'm there, exposed, vulnerable, and sharing something flat-footed and saying, this is what I truly believe. This is what is meaningful to me. And not just in prison work, and all different, I put out front in all facets of my life, right? And family, at work, with friends, all of these things. And it was extremely uncomfortable. But what I found was that that discomfort was leading me to a place of familiarity. I thrive in kind of that uncomfortable space, being uncomfortable. I was like, okay, this is very uncomfortable. I need to stick with this. And
isn't that crazy how that works?
It's transformed me and how I approach opportunities to be out front. This year, my word is embrace. So as the good and the bad, the every opportunity, everything, I am stepping into it, embracing it fully. And so I'm interested to understand what insights I'll learn this year, because there's always something. So yes, it is courageous for me to embrace this role fully, to take on the responsibilities of an organization that that doesn't just want to make money. Honestly, we want to make money. We need to make money, but really wants to make an impact on the world that is meaningful. And doing that by becoming a public benefit corporation and going on the path to B certification, to be one of those organizations that says we are really about goodness. And we want to, we want the work that we do to stand.
So as I'm listening to your share, I'm having that conversation with myself that I recognize that there's a rye rant coming. There's a rant coming, and it's a positive rant, but I always have to be careful here because my role as a podcast host is very different than my role as a keynote speaker, right? Like I think my role when we're doing shows like this is I want the world to understand who you are and what you're trying to bring to the world, right? I also feel that from my own experiences, we're more alike than not, right? I mean, for those who can't tell, I mean, black man, white man, and we should have that chat. I think we should have that chat.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I went on the journey for me, I had to be at peace with people misunderstanding me in certain arenas. Like you have to care and not care at the same time. You can when you have your purpose and it's so clear, like getting on stage, I think for some people that see me on stage, they're like narcissist. It's like I can't control if someone truly thinks that. I know in my heart, like if I can inspire 3.4 million people to be more brave and be more courageous and take on what's hard, then I'm willing to go on a stage and do that. If I can get to just 1% of the US population and then give them the tools that they need to go do what they do. So then I start to look at your magic and your stuff, and it's like, HEARTI, you have this process. You've already done the work. It's again, HEARTI stands for humility, empathy, accountability, resiliency, transparency, and inclusivity. I think where the only word that there's a slight pivot between the two is I always say I'm not a resilience expert, I'm a courageous expert. Like I think resiliency from my lens, and I'm sure you have a different definition, is when change happens to you, how you respond to that. Right. I think when I want to be known for, well, I like when you don't get a say on change. Change drives you, resilience. You drive change, courageous. Like that's where are we going to hit the gas and run the narrative? But talk to me how you have, I mean, you've got this great asset in HEARTI, right? It's ammunition. In some ways, you're like, hey, I mean, yes, I'm the CEO, but like, let's just sort of see where you land right here, and then I can give you the diagnosis on where you are in the org. Is that how you see it too?
Absolutely. The HEARTI is it's an awareness tool for leaders. We have the HEARTI leader quotient where it's all self-reported. The score you get back is driven by the way you interact with the questions, with the conversation that you're having. And we also have a 360 product where then you're bringing in a series of people, whether that be direct reports, peers, customers, bosses, whatever, to give that same perspective. And then it's reflected. Here's how you had the conversation. Here's how your team had the conversation. And here's what the evaluation looked like. So it's great awareness for you to have, find hidden strengths, of course, uncover blind spots of how you can employ all of those skills that you talked about: humility, empathy, accountability. And the expectation is not for everyone to be completely HEARTI and ping, the top of every single skill, but everyone has a fingerprint of leadership, right? Of something that they're strong and somewhere there's vulnerability. And it's when you're willing to be transparent about that with others and say, hey, I'm highly accountable, but I'm not that transparent. Can you're very transparent. How can we work together if we encounter a challenge? So team building, it allows you to understand how to communicate better with each other on a way of keeping humanity in the decision making. And that's the whole goal of HEARTI, is to remember that we're humans, that we're working with other humans, even as leaders. And it takes that understanding of your own limitations and being humble and saying, there's no way I can know what these people want unless I ask them. So I have to be empathetic. And then once I ask them, we're going to form some kind of contract or a performance goal or somewhere we want to be. So everybody needs to be accountable to that. So we're accountable to these goals, but then the best laid plans, as they say, right? Life happens, the supply chain messes up, someone, gets sick for 2 weeks or something like that. And how do you build resilience? It's just like you said, it's how do you adapt? How do you change to that? Because we cannot stop those unexpected things to happen when we're going through business. So how do we adapt? How do we move forward? How do we shift? Which is likely going to lead to messaging and communication and being transparent, really communicating what the vision is, reminding people what the purpose is and what the goals are so that you can keep moving forward. And then inclusivity brings it all together, because you're not effective if you use all of those skills with only one type of people or with only one group. You have to be inclusive with all of those skills so that everyone experiences that flow, that understanding, that if I can't do it all by myself, so I need you. How do we work together and communicate so that we can perform at our highest level?
Yeah, let's talk inclusivity real quick, if you don't mind. Like,
Sure.
I feel like this is all right, I should start by saying my leadership team right now, I mean, I have 2 partners at the top, and it's like everything we do is through the lens of courage. So there's knowledge, there's faith, and there's action. So there's a knowledge gathering lead, there's a faith building lead, and there's an action taking lead. 2 white dudes, one white woman. This is our team. And we're small but mighty. And then I think our models are similar, where our language is that we see ourselves as like very good listeners and a special forces that helps you figure out you're special, and then we're going to put the right players on the team. But from an inclusive standpoint, pretty small team, but I do see the diversity conversation as, no, this is not a check the box thing. Like, this is a help you think outside your box and make sure it's not like everybody has blinders on. They have an idea of what they think is the truth, but the truth is usually like a little bit of how you see the world and a little bit of how I see the world, in a collision of those 2 universes. Is that what you mean by inclusivity, or is there a wider definition as well?
Ultimately, it's to get as far away from creating an echo chamber for yourself as possible. And if you have people who look like you, who came from the same background, who have the same life experiences, who have the same similar working bodies, then all of the inspiration is going to be kind of a one note song. And the idea is to make sure that more voices are empowered and heard and included. And some ways you can't get away from, if someone looks different than others, there's going to be a different perspective. If someone has a different shade of skin, they've had some different life experiences than you've had. If someone comes from one part of town that you didn't, it might have been 2 blocks over. They likely had a different experience than you had. So the more you allow yourself to include the possibility of collaborating with and performing with people who don't share the exact same story that you have, the more innovative you're going to be, the stronger your solutions are going to be. Like HEARTI, all of this, just like your courage framework, it's not just out of a singular mind, right? This was out of research and study and conversations and life experiences of a brilliant team of people to say that these are the skills that we want to elevate, right? That can truly make an impact.
Talk me through the HEARTI process. Not the words, but like, when you work with the new client, is the first thing they're doing running through HEARTI?
Not always. Not always. We've had a number of different types of engagements, but the most likely engagement is yes. We would identify a cohort of leaders or a team that either are having engagement problems with their teams, or their management scores are low. They're just not able to get over the hump, right? Or those that are being eyed to move into executive leadership. What are the skills that they need to understand? And so we start with awareness. We say, how are you as a HEARTI leader? How humble are you? How willing are you to say that I don't know the answer to that, or I made a mistake, and be accountable to that? And once we have that kind of understanding as a consultant, as the leader, as the organization, we can then move in, yes, to any of our learning labs or content to deliver to them through, over a keynote, an afternoon, or a few weeks, to be able to get people to understand that this is how I incorporate these skills into my everyday working routine. And then, we continue to facilitate executive coaching. But yes, it does start with HEARTI as having an understanding of, I know I have some inclusive leadership skills, I just don't know where, and I don't know how to start. This is what this gives you that.
I was wondering if the eye also is it looking at where you might have blinders with what you've got, or is it making recommendations on what you need?
So it is truly behaviorally based. So the conversation you're having is about, what do I do now as a leader? And so a lot of these questions are going to prompt you to say, I'm not doing that now. I should likely incorporate some of this, or no, I would never do that. This is not who I am. And you get to have a better understanding of, this is why I make decisions the way I do. This is why I show up the way I do. And it gives you that confidence and validation to say, again, I don't have to be all things to all people. I don't have to be completely HEARTI, but I can own my ability to be empathetic and have a real conversation and listen and take some insights and say, here's what we're going to do. Here's the action we're going to take out of it.
So I'm wondering, Corey, is there something that seems so obvious to you that the world, I mean, look, we're all busy, right? So like, we're just busy. So you never get 100% of somebody's brain. You get like 17%, right? They're thinking about dinner tonight, or they're thinking about picking up their kids, whatever they're thinking about. So is there something that feels so obvious to you, you wish the world got about PrismWorks, that you can share here?
We know that the way of work has changed completely. And we know that everyone's still finding a way to navigate this. To answer your question, yes, we're a completely distributed workforce. We are remote. We're headquartered in Texas. I'm in Texas, but we are a completely distributed team. And that is one of the outcomes of the past 3 years, 4 years, right? Is the reality that companies are trying to navigate. Do we have a hybrid team? Do we have remote teams? There's so much change that's come in the past few years. PrismWork is here to help you understand how to use tried and true skills that we all know and love: humility, empathy, accountability, resiliency, transparency, and inclusivity, how to incorporate them into your everyday leading routine at work, because you're going to face challenges. You're going to face things that you don't know the answer to. And the more HEARTI available you are, then the more likely you can find a solution that will work for you, right? It may not be the ultimate solution, but the solution for you, your team, you can get to the right one and be excited about it, right?
And then what? What's the plan? What's the plan from there, right?
So from there, you set goals. Like, we make sure that in every engagement, as a team, you set real goals about how to shift the dynamics on your team. How do you enter meetings? How do you elevate the voices on the team that aren't being heard? How do you provide opportunities for innovation? How do you provide opportunities to connect on a regular basis with your team that you see in a square every 30, 45 minutes after another without a break in between? And how do you find times to really make those times in person meaningful? It doesn't feel like a waste of time. That feels like you're moving things forward. And then we follow up with coaching. We continue to, follow up a few months later, a few quarters later, to say, hey, how are things going? How are you following up on those goals? How are you progressing? Have you communicated that out to your organization outside of your team? So we give them tools to start really exploring that journey, to be courageous. Part of it is, okay, you've done this workshop, don't keep it to yourself, share it with your team, share it with your organization. Here's, take a stand, proclaim what your whys are, and we keep encouraging them along the way.
See, Corey, I'm wondering if you can keep it real with me on this one. Like, not that you haven't been keeping it real with me on the last one, to be clear. I feel like, because like I said, I feel like we're both on similar journeys, and maybe we're in different places of the journey, but it wasn't too long ago that I too was behind a camera making recommendations, right? Hitting the keyboard on a script, right? And imagining a world that could help a client here, that, there, or wherever, 30 seconds at a time, maybe, or 10 seconds at a time. And one of the aha moments that I had for me when I was writing Return on Courage was good luck selling a courageous idea if you don't have a courageous leader. And like, for me, that was the big, and by the way, I think at the time it wasn't that clear for me. Something just felt off or different. Like I had entered a new, like it was like a glitch of a dimension that I just knew there was another thing for me. And now I can articulate it as, okay, wow, the world is much wider. And if I can make an impact at the leadership level, I'll put a company in permission to be more courageous or to acquire a courageous idea. And that's kind of what lit me up. It was the impact that I felt like I could make. And I love that it's not a new line for me, but I get paid to tell the truth. Like I get paid to, get in front of an audience and have a hard conversation that they don't want to have. But so as you think back on, here you are now in the CEO role, but even why you went on this journey in the first place, like, why do you feel that you're willing to risk, you go back to your word du jour of the year of out front? I know now you're to embrace. Why did you feel you needed to do this for you?
Oh man, that's a deep question. So I like to think in time frames, and I think I can't remember where my stop was, but I was leading somewhere, and I was leading a young man. I know exactly where I was leading a young man who reminded me of myself just entering the workforce. And it was like, if I could find a mirror, right, of what, not in looks, but just of the background, right? If this would not be an inclusive hire, other than we did not share skin or anything, or blood or anything like that, but like everything else, the background was very similar. And I noticed that even though I would do things a certain way, they chose to do things completely differently, right? And that was like a big epiphany for me, because I was like, well, of course, it's nurture and nature, right? So this person has had the exact same experience. They would do things like I would chose similar. And it's not exactly the same, but very close. And it just really freed me of this understanding that there's always alignment on these touch points, right? We might share skin color, we might share education, we might share an affiliation of some sort, we might share gender, but that doesn't always mean that we're going to have identical points of view or perspectives on a situation. And we might have different, completely different solutions. And I said that to say, I've I've learned to say, what would I say, right? What advice would I give to that person that's coming up after me, that person that is working alongside me, that's my, same age or same title or same role, whatever. And what would I say to how could I be as holistic in my communication as possible to all of these different people? And it made me think more, and for whatever reason, in time frames, right? What my point of view, I was starting to realize I had years on this person, right? Years of life experience that they had not been able to have or account for. And that was what also drive the decision I was making. I had to be real with myself and say, Corey, if you were that age in that position, you would not choose what you're choosing now. And it flipped a switch for me to truly understand how to consider others, how to be empathetic to others, and in making decisions as a leader. And I was like, what is a tool that could make that happen? What is something that could just give me a true understanding of how I show up? And I know it's not because we look the same. I know it's not because we have the same background, but there's something that we do, and it's how we behave as leaders, how we make choices as leaders, how we include others, how we consider the experiences of others in our journey as leaders to build something. And HEARTI was the answer. When Lisa and Jean Ann and the rest of the team came together and we identified these skills and said, these are the ones, accountability is it. This is how we make impact. It like clicked for me. And it was like, this is exactly it. A young leader entering the workforce, someone who's trying to make the leap to executive leadership, someone who's trying to thrive as an executive leader. These are all the skills that I wanted to remind myself to keep top of mind. And how could I put actions that translated to those skills and identify them? And it was such a passion for me to say, this is it, because this is how I've chosen to operate. And all this time, yes, we've started in 2021. We are 3 years old. But humility, empathy, accountability, resiliency, transparency, and inclusivity are all skills that have served me well throughout my journey. No matter where I stop and I look. Now, again, wasn't operating in all of these at all, firing on all cylinders, but realizing the impact that was made and how it was reflected back to me. There's a lot of benefits of being HEARTI, right? Because you inspire others to do that. And when others do that, that means that they consider you as well. So, it's honestly a very selfish endeavor to be HEARTI. Include me, right? Include me as part of it. But that's what makes it win-win, is if I can be HEARTI towards you, then my hope, my expectation, right, is that you would be HEARTI towards me.
I think selfish gets a bad rap anyway. I think
let's say self-interested.
Well, self-centered is another thing, right? But like selfish, right? Is Corey Jones. I'm pumped for you, man. Congrats on being in the messy. I'm excited to see what the next 1,000 days look like. People, check out PrismWork.com. Check out Corey's book, Intentional Power. He's about 6 months in. I think it came out in October. Solid. Give the 1 minute cliff notes on the book. We didn't really do this justice on this pod, but that's all good.
Yeah, Intentional Power: The 6 Essential Leadership Skills for Triple Bottom Line Impact, published by Wiley, was a venture I co-authored with Lisa Stromberg and Jean Ann Nichols, both very brilliant people, and it really talks about HEARTI. If you want a deeper conversation and understand how to honestly operate as a HEARTI leader, this book does it. It sets the context of the world we live in. It goes into every single skill, and then it talks about how to make impact. And what's so great about this book is that we're using real examples. This is not just theory. This is not just, I think HEARTI would make us a better world. It's no, here are leaders who have stepped up to say, here's why humility works. Here's why empathy. So business leaders, organizations who have taken action to be HEARTI in the world and the impact that it makes, And that's what it is. Regarding PrismWork, the courageous thing that we're doing. So in my launch, I was like, what is the big thing? And I know in my heart of hearts, Ryan, if we have 1 million HEARTI leaders, at least 1 million HEARTI leaders, we will change the workplace forever. And so my goal is to attract and support 1 million HEARTI leaders in their journey to executive leadership, to building better companies, to building better organizations.
Awesome, man. Keep chopping wood, my friend. Good to see you, Corey. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.